Let's have a frank discussion about life fulfillment and the efforts we're willing to take to fulfill our own cups of both destiny and perseverance. For all of us, life is a individual journey of execution of a vision, and our commitment to its achievement will ultimately determine how best we are able to impact the world and the people around us. I wanted to also provide you some statistical data of evidence to consider as we continue to have a thoughtful conversation on this very topic. According to Gallup, they report that less than half of all Americans are currently very satisfied with the direction and state of their own personal lives. Meanwhile, they also say that 78% of Americans today are at least somewhat satisfied with the current state of their personal lives. So, my friends, the question now becomes, how do we find a happy medium and balance between the two? And for some answers, I want to bring in my friend Jenna Hatch. She is someone who is transforming the outsourcing industry by taking a human-first approach. As the founder of Project Outsource, Jenna believes that business growth first thrives with making authentic human connections that move the needle of progress when it comes to gauging empathy and its role in business. Hatch believes that business efficiency comes from making a connection on the human level. Jenna helps businesses streamline their business operations while also maintaining that personal touch that humanizes the sales process. She uses the advancement of AI to help businesses with their delegation process so that they can get their time back and use virtual assistants in order to free up more time in their business so that they can do what they love to do and leave the mundane or operational tasks to their virtual assistant counterparts. If you're looking to grow your business without losing the human element, my friends, today's conversation is one that you can't afford to miss. And lucky for all of us, my conversation with Hatch starts right now. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Absolutely. So, Jenna, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn how you're taking a more human-centered approach to the outsourcing process, my friend. Great to see you and happy Monday to you.
Let's do it. I would love to tell everyone, your audience, let's do it.
Absolutely. So, Jenna, you tell me that you're committed to taking a more human-centered approach to the outsourcing process, my friend. So I'd love if we could start our conversation by you telling me what makes you so fabulous and why you love what you do, my friend.
Yes, thank you for your awesome tee up. So I guess I'll start by saying, like, I grew up in New York and I now live in Austin, Texas. But I like to joke. I like to say that, growing up in New York, I was like an over emotional person and people were like, you got to get thicker skin. whatever it may be. That was kind of like the beginning of my journey of like connecting with people, right? On like a different level. Now, what makes my business different and unique and what we're trying to, bring that human approach in is so I have an outsourcing company, right? And we hire virtual assistants over in the Philippines. And there are plenty of VA companies out there in the world these days. But the difference is you can go to Upwork, to Fiverr, to all these different agencies and find somebody that you can offload that grunt work onto. Um, but what makes my company different is I don't want to just pair you up with somebody who, checks these boxes for you. I mean, I know firsthand actually that when you work with one of those agencies, it's kind of like a revolving door. Like you're working with, Susie one day and Bob the next. And that's because you're not building a relationship with the person. And Kevin, I don't know if you've ever had like an amazing, like, someone on leadership or a boss or anything in your jobs where when they really took just a little bit of time to learn more about you and who you are as a person, you appreciated that. And in turn, probably worked harder for them. Right. And so the difference is like, I'm not just representing my clients and I'm not just representing my VAs. For me, it's like this is a level playing field. We are all trying to build our businesses. We're all trying to get ahead of the competition. But we have to remember that behind AI technology, behind the computer, there's a real person. There's a real person that wants to be heard and have their opinions out there and wants to be valued. So that's kind of the difference is I focus on having my clients build a relationship with their VA so that it's not just somebody to offload the grunt work to, but now it's like a trusted partner, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jenna, one of the things that, I totally agree with you because I believe that business, the heartbeat of business is sort of generating and cultivating genuine human relationships, my friend. So I'm also fascinated to ask you about what do you think goes into making genuine human connections? Because it really makes a difference in business if people know and have sort of a relationship with the people that they do business with. So tell me, what do you think goes into creating genuine human business and personal relationships? What are your thoughts there?
That's a fantastic question. It's definitely a loaded question that I have a lot of answers to. But what makes a genuine human connection? Typically, when I had turned away somebody at one point because they said to me, Jenna, don't we pay you to sift through all the BS? Which kind of like stopped me dead in my tracks. And I was like, well, yeah, you do. But here's the difference again between other companies and mine. Now, creating that genuine human connection, I start all the way at the beginning when I do my strategy call and I start asking questions about like, why did you start your business? What motivators are going to persuade or influence how you make decisions in your business? Because what I'm trying to figure out is how does your brain work? What makes you tick? The reason why I'm doing that is because, again, it's almost like I'm doing like a matchmaking service between you and your virtual assistant. If you have somebody that is super analytical, who's really into numbers and crunching and understanding the why behind things, it's going to be way more beneficial to pair them up with somebody who has a similar mindset that can understand where the person is coming from so that you're not like two ships passing in the middle of the night, right? You have to find somebody that is going to be a good extension of you, that understands your brand, that understands the messaging and the tone of your business. And so I believe like building those genuine human connections starts at the very beginning with me learning what makes you tick. And then from there, it's like uncovering your personality and finding somebody who complements your personality. Because what I like to say is you could have multiple visionaries in a room, and the more visionaries that you have without an executor, it's just ideas floating around, right? It's just this idea, that idea. But if you find a visionary business owner, and you find the person who understands their vision, and can connect with them a little bit at a deeper level, that's when the magic really happens. That's when those genuine human connections are formed. And it's not just all pipe dreams now. These are like dreams that people are now making a reality.
Yeah, and Jenna, one of the hallmarks of what you help people understand is that empathy can be used as a sort of competitive advantage when you're building relationships. So why do you think empathy can be used as a competitive advantage in business?
Absolutely. Well, I feel like with the rise of AI technology, I've had a bunch of I take a couple of classes on AI technology a month, and one of my favorite things that came out of it was somebody in my class had raised their hand and said, "Well, if everybody's using this AI technology, how are we supposed to uncover or really like figure out who is the best person to work with, right?" And empathy has a lot to do with that. Because ultimately, what you're going to do in your business when looking for someone to partner with or to work with is you're going to see if you're able to connect with them, right? And ultimately, all of the things on the front end, like AI technology, like your VA, like whatever else, is going to drop off, and you're going to be left with the person behind it, right? Me, as kind of like, I do consider myself an empath. I find it that when I'm talking with my clients, it's so easy to relate to their struggles of what they're going through, whether it's empathetic or sympathetic. If I've directly been involved in something like that, or if I've had a similar experience, right? And I feel like when you're able to connect with your client and or your VA, that's where empathy really comes in and makes that relationship stronger. And that's really how I kind of build business as well, is I look at people who have, similar mindsets to me, have gone through similar experiences, and that's kind of what has molded us and shaped us into who we are, right? So I'm a big fan of empathy in business.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jenna, tell me, I'm wondering, for anyone watching this who may be saying to themselves, well, everything sounds wonderful and terrific and emotion and all of those things sound wonderful, but how can I do that while also maintaining the production standards of my business or organization? What would be your thoughts there on how we can balance production and everything and emotion at the same time? What are your thoughts?
Great question again. So there's a couple different ways to do this. Now, within my business, like I said, what we're doing is we're focusing on building relationships with our virtual assistants, but that we can't focus all on that when we're trying to build a business, right? So how are we balancing? One of the things that I also really encourage is the use of AI technology within the business. Now, this is for a couple of different reasons. One, again, I believe that there's a lot of VA companies that just offload the grunt work onto somebody else. Well, fun fact, AI technology can already take care of the grunt work. It knows how to crunch numbers. We can create automations, workflows, and sequences. But just like humans have their limitations, AI also has its limitations, right? It doesn't understand emotion or can't be creative in the way that humans can be. So when we're looking at a business and making sure that we're still getting things done, one of the first things that we go over is the person's business itself. And we try to find places of where we can automate a lot of their grunt work. What that allows everyone to do is take all the things that were kind of clouding up our minds, automating it into a seamless process, which then allows the business owner to start delegating those higher level tasks to their VA, right? So we incorporate some of this AI technology to be able to scale the business a little bit faster. I had a second thought in my mind and now I just kind of lost it. But, so basically it's not all like this woo woo, learning to build relationships. That also comes with time, right? It's making sure that your employees showing up on time is reporting to you with what they've accomplished and what their goals are for the next day. So that is kind of like a natural relationship builder, right? Over time, just making sure that you can count on the person, that they're trustworthy. But all the while, with that natural relationship builder, we're not focusing on building the relationship every single day of the week. We're focusing on what the business owner needs to get done, accomplished, created, right? We're helping them do that, which in turn is naturally building a relationship. So that's kind of the ways that we keep it, business forward, making sure that things are getting done while simultaneously focusing on building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jenna, tell me about your own personal story, because as you mentioned, you're originally from New York, but living in Austin, and you sort of said that New York had a way of sort of eating you up or sucking the life out of you in some respects. And, I'm a big believer in self-reflection and reflecting on the personal development journey that we all go through. And I know that you went through sort of a transformation process when it came to protecting your happiness and your sort of your safe space, my friend. So talk to me about the journey and transition from New York to Austin, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, like the running joke is you'll hear me say on a bunch of podcasts and kind of in my day-to-day life that New York chewed me up and spat me out. And that's in like the most loving way possible, because I've always kind of known I was a bit different. Like I said, over emotional, fast forward. And I also have ADHD, and that's pretty much one of the biggest symptoms or factors. But I like to say that New York kind of chewed me up, spat me out, but what I took from it was hustle, grind, and customer service. Right out of college, I moved to Denver and I joined the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Denver. Actually, I joined AmeriCorps, and AmeriCorps, which is like Peace Corps, but it's only in the US. They took me to Denver and I was working in the Boys and Girls Clubs in like 11 different centers. It was then like that was like my real, because I went to school upstate New York, but moving out of New York, that was my real first adventure of meeting people outside of New York. And Denver, I feel, was a perfect place to start that journey, because Denver itself is like a what did I say? It's like everyone kind of migrates there, right? You have all walks of life that are migrating to like this little melting pot, like this baby melting pot. And like I said, that's when I kind of started meeting people outside of New York and just seeing all walks of life and falling in love with all walks of life. So, fast forward as we typically do in our early 20s, where I'm still trying to figure out my life. And I, essentially ran out of money in Denver, needed to move back to New York. Moved back in with my parents for a couple of months, and I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. So 3 months after I moved back, I ended up meeting my husband. We got married, had my son, and then my cousin had moved to Austin. And I went with a girlfriend of mine and visited her here in Austin, and I just instantly fell in love. It was just like at the time, it was a smaller Denver. It's called a transplant city. I just got it. It just like popped up back up to my head. But Denver and Austin are transplant cities. Basically, people from all over love to move there. So at the time, and this was 2017, Austin had not really blown up yet, but it was another transplant city just like Denver. And I said to my husband, like, let's go there. Now, I do fully believe that once I moved to Austin, a part of this is the fact that like when I was growing up, I didn't really have career goals. I really just wanted to be a mom. And so once I was a mom and kind of checked that box, then my whole mindset kind of shifted into career mode. And moving to Austin is when I kind of kicked it into high gear. I started working at a daycare just because I was able to take my son with me. And then I started like moving up in the world and started actually doing, jobs that I loved. Sales is still my favorite thing in the whole wide world. And it's not because I'm like a sleazy salesperson, but rather it was a manager who told me, you have to understand, or you have to have other people understand, the people you're selling to, how this product or service or membership, like fill in the blank, how does it benefit the person's life? And that is something, me being a people lover, I was really able to like get behind. So sales has always been my favorite thing because I ultimately just want to help other people. But then I became an insurance agent, and I was doing that for 3 years. And talk about burnout. It was in corporate America, and I was on depression medication. I was like all the things, and that's kind of when I officially in 2022 put my foot down. Of like, I'm tired of moving heaven and earth for other people. I want to start moving heaven and earth for me and my family. Right. So that's kind of like the journey that got me starting in New York, kind of feeling like I was, an outcast of sorts, moving to Denver, understanding that there are other people in the world like me, moving back to New York, meeting the love of my life, moving to Austin, and starting my actual career path. And 2024, here we are, and I officially own my own business, and there's more coming on the horizon. So that's the journey.
Well, my friend, no one will ever accuse you of not being resilient, okay?
Thank you.
Absolutely. And, just listening to you speak, I'm 35 now, and I'm still trying to figure out my purpose in life. No, I'm only kidding, but it's a journey to find discover your passion, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? I wouldn't even say just kidding. I am a strong believer in like I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. It's like our hopes and dreams are shifting and changing with every stage in life. And where in the past I fully was looking for my forever job. Am I going to be an insurance agent for the rest of my life? Am I going to be a director for this company for the rest of my life? I was trying to find that forever job, and then the way that the world is changing, like Kevin, I think you should keep that going about like, I'm still trying to find my true passion. Keep it going because that's how we grow, right? It's like, let me try this, let me try that, let me try rock climbing. Maybe that's my new passion. Let me try painting. Maybe that's my new passion. I am no longer putting myself in a box. Like I'm no longer being like, this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. It's going to continue to mold and shift and change, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, leading to my next question, Jenna, how do you think we can all discover our superpowers in life? Because, I believe that everyone's portrait of success is different, and life is a constant game of learning, my friend, as you just alluded to. So, how do you think we can all discover our superpowers in life?
That is a great question. And I think there's a couple different ways to answer this. So, discovering your passion, I would first take a look inwards to see, and this sounds counterintuitive, but like take a look at what makes you unique, whether it annoys people or if people love that about you. And whatever it may be, lean into it. Okay, because that's what makes you different. That's what makes you unique. And it's okay if not everybody likes it. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. That, like I said before, that over emotionalness, there are plenty of people in the world that are just like, absolutely not. Don't come by me. I don't need your emotions and your tears. Right. But then there are other people in my life who I've chosen to have in my life who are like, yes, tell me everything. Let's cry together. So you will find your people that way, right? And secondly, I just want to say, which is it's ridiculous. And again, when your audience is listening to this, who knows when they'll be listening, but there is currently a trend going on social media about asking ChatGPT. And to be honest, there's something to that. I wouldn't say bet your whole life on it, but AI is, there's so much you can do with AI. And one of the trends that's going on right now is taking like your desires in life, your goals in life, your wants. I want to do this. I want to travel here. I want to travel there. Popping it into ChatGPT and having ChatGPT basically make this path for you to walk to be able to accomplish those things. So if you're unsure even where to start, I think there's something to it. I say go on to ChatGPT, write in all of your hopes and dreams, and see what it comes up with as like a plan. Because some of the things you might agree with, and some of the things you might be like, this is very doable. I can accomplish this. In which case, it takes you down a new path. Ultimately, you are in control of your own destiny. But I feel like one, looking inward and figuring out what makes you unique, lean into that. And if you don't know where to start, use some AI tools. You'd be shocked what it comes up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jenna, I'm also curious to share just a small part of my personal story with you as I ask you my next question. So, Jenna, I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. Simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. And I found out at the age of 9 that I would never be able to walk without the assistance of a walker for the duration of my life because of the severity of my disability. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about being a professional speaker now, outside of hosting this podcast, is when I graduated college back in 2010, Jenna, I was rejected by 10 consecutive news directors to become a sports reporter because at the time they told me because of my disability, they refused to hire me because they didn't think I would be properly supported if they brought me into a newsroom. So I've made it my professional mission to highlight the benefits of hiring people with disabilities. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you think is the benefits of hiring folks with disabilities, and how can the business community learn from this segment of our population? What are your thoughts there?
First of all, I just want to commend you. I also graduated college 2010, so I believe we're probably around the same age. Um, but it hurts my heart to hear that that was your experience. I think people are very ignorant in that way. And I want to commend you for taking something that might have squashed the dreams of somebody else. And you've been like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to make this work for me. So congratulations, Kevin, because it's a huge accomplishment for you. Okay, so about your question about hiring people with disabilities in business. Now, here's the thing. There is also a very big push right now. There are so many disabilities where some might be physical and some are visible. There are also a lot of disabilities that are not visible. And I think the world is shifting to this whole mentality of just because somebody has a disability doesn't mean they're not able to work or not, doesn't, I mean, I'm not saying it right, but the world is in the beginning stages of shifting their mindset to what disability actually means. Okay. And in your case, not getting enough oxygen to your legs or being able to walk has no direct impact on newscasting or doing any speaking. I think that we all need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of if somebody is qualified to do the job, you have to give that person a chance. I say this in a way like this is what I tell people when we're interviewing our VAs. We've all learned how to interview now in school. We've all learned how to interview. And honestly, you hear those things like hire slow and fire fast, right? People will take all the time in the world to make sure they're making the right decision when hiring somebody. And then the second they get into it, they're like, oh my God, this person is not a good fit. And you fire them immediately. What I have come to find in whether someone has a disability or not is you need to figure out the why in somebody and their passions, because ultimately that's the output you're going to get. So just because someone is applying to, maybe be a VA and they have a disability does not mean I'm going to automatically say, no, this person is not a good fit. Ultimately, I want to know what your passion is. And Kevin, if you came to me with somebody else and you had more of a passion for what we're doing, I'm ultimately going to go with you, because if you don't have the passion behind it, you're miserable in your job. You're going to look elsewhere. But if you give somebody the opportunity to do something that they love, they're going to work twice as hard at it. So I guess, to put it in a nice little bow, a very big reason to hire people who have disabilities, besides just giving everybody a chance, is if you find the right person that has the passion behind it, this person is going to work 50,000 times harder for you than someone who didn't have the passion but could walk. Please.
Absolutely. And my friend, I know that you have done a lot of work to sort of revolve or reverse the trend of being in the victim mentality stage of your life, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about, how do you think people can really take ownership and pride in their own lives? Because I'm a big believer in the fact that life and adversity happens to all of us, and I always tell people that resilience is the answer to the test of adversity once adversity strikes. But how do you think we can take ownership and pride in our own sort of life narrative, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Great question. So I guess the slight backstory is, I was born and raised in victim mentality, meaning, anytime something went wrong, my parents just kind of said like, oh, this stuff happens to our family all the time. This stuff happens to our family. Fast forward, I was 22 years old, about to graduate college, and my boyfriend at the time, we were talking about our future and, the family we wanted to build. And he had said, I want to raise our children, teaching them that the world is a wonderful place and it is what you make of it. And my brain exploded, because which it seems so simple, right? The world is a wonderful place. It is what you make of it. My brain exploded because I was taught that the world is a terrible place and you have to fight your way through it. So every time, one of those moments of adversity had popped up, just smacked me in the face, I was like, oh, this always happens to me. This always happens to me. I think a really great way of thinking about it, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. I have a lot of one-liners, and one of my one-liners is, when you're in, and I usually use a cuss word, and I don't want to do that on your website, or on your website, your podcast. But I basically say, like, when you're in the storm of it all, you're unable to see why these things are happening to you, right? Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, why are all these things being thrown at me, just trying to like knock me back into my comfort zone, whatever it is. But the second you step out of the storm, it's almost like the eye of the storm, right? But things are going on around you. But once you step on the outside and you're able to look back and see, like, in hindsight, this is why all those things happened. I encourage people, if you feel like you're in this victim mentality, take a look at some of the worst parts of your life. For me, maybe it was one of those times when I was in insurance. For the record, I loved my life when I was doing insurance. I loved my coworkers. I love insurance, which is weird. Not a lot of people love insurance, right? But it was also like a really tough time in my life. And like I said, I was on depression medication. I was super burnt out. And it's very easy for me to kind of crawl in a hole and put a blanket over my head and be like, why is this happening to me again? But when I look back on it, that was like that. My 3 years in insurance was the opportunity to show other people how amazing I am in business, with like cultivating relationships, going above and beyond for the client. fast forward, that burnout that I was experiencing taught me how to start. Like, it was literally the beginning, because yeah, I'm turning 37, and I tell people all the time, it's when I was 35 is when I started setting boundaries. Having that experience allowed me to understand how to start setting boundaries. And then lastly, when I ended up leaving the insurance job, I went to a tech company, and I was part of the tech, like the big 2022 tech layoffs, which I really thought I was moving to like a better opportunity. And that's a great example of how I could have slipped right back into victim mentality. Oh, woe is me. Why did that happen to me? But if all of those things didn't happen, I would not have opened up my own business. All of those things needed to happen. I needed to feel that burnout. I needed to be on depression medication to be able to set the boundaries. I needed to go to a different opportunity, and I needed to have the rug pulled out from underneath me in order to step up and be like, what am I going to do now?
I'm curious. I've got two more questions for you, and then I'm going to ask you my final question. I'm curious to ask you about, delegation in business and the advancements of AI, because it's made delegation so much easier. But as you know, as business owners, it's hard for some business owners to delegate over others. And, the advancements of AI have made that easier. So tell me about striking a balance between wanting to control our businesses and how delegation has made sort of it easier. And where do you see AI's sort of involvement in the whole thing? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Okay, so as far as being able to delegate, like there are definitely some people who are more micromanagers and other people that are just like, I don't really care how you do it, just get it done, right? And so that kind of brings me back to what I said earlier about how in my discovery calls or my strategy calls, I typically want to understand how you think, what makes you tick, right? Because that's the first indication of, am I going to be able to have a little bit more freedom building out their processes, or are they going to be involved in every step? But what I would say is, as far as integrating AI tools and kind of giving up control, you can start very, very small with something like Loom or even Fathom. Like Fathom is a note taker, right? AI, it's an AI note taker that basically you can get like a transcript afterwards. You can ask AI to summarize. I would start very small with things like that, kind of dipping your toes into it. Loom is a really great way. Loom is Zoom with an L, to record your screen and to start recording some of those processes. If you are somebody who is like, I can't give up control, I can't, loosen these reins because I'm not great at delegating, or you're afraid that somebody's not going to understand exactly what it is that you want, it doesn't have to change. You can show somebody exactly how you want it done using Loom, right? So screen record yourself going through a process. Once you have that screen recording, it will have a transcript for you. Take the transcript, pop it into something like ChatGPT, tell it to, summarize, give me a step by step. And then you could even tell ChatGPT to turn it into like a Google Doc or something like that. And suddenly you have your first SOP created, right? You can start small. Now there are much bigger tools like Zapier or Make.com. Make.com is probably more powerful. Zapier has the name brand and more integrations, right? But we have somebody on our staff that we literally have paid to go through Make Academy, which is one of the most powerful automation tools out there. So depending on where you're at on your journey, if you're ready to take that massive leap into automating a lot of these things, if you're really into AI, there are ways to do it and efficiently. But if you're kind of afraid of it, start small, right? But as far as then integrating a virtual assistant in conjunction with AI technology, that's really what gives you that multiplicative effect in your business. because ultimately I like to tell people, I mean, Kevin, I don't know if you've played around with AI before, but I will sit here for hours playing with AI and learning how to prompt it better and trying this tool and that tool. And I encourage people to figure out still, what are you worth per hour? Because if you're sitting here for 5 hours spinning your wheels trying to figure out how to use AI, it's a waste of your time. And that's when you should be hiring a virtual assistant to figure out the AI. It's a very delicate balance.
Indeed, my friend. And my last question for you, Jen, has to do with women's empowerment and legacy, your own legacy in business. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how women are sort of transforming the landscape of business and your view on women's empowerment. And when we look at your own personal and professional legacy, Jen, how do you want that to be defined?
It's a really, really great question, especially because I feel like I'm not, I feel like I'm a person who I'm a woman that wants to support women, but I am also a woman that wants to support men too. Like I'm a person that believes that there is space for everyone. So I guess you would say like I'm not hardcore feminist, right? I think that naturally with all the progress that we've made, people are starting to listen a lot more to women. The fact that we do know what we're talking about. We do have all these additional ideas. And I just really believe it's a matter of collaboration to get the best end results. I'm part of a couple of different like networking groups like Found Hers, Empower Hers, where it's all women supporting women. But I also just want to say, like on the record almost, I feel that as a woman, you need to come into a room showing people that you know what you're talking about. Okay. Ultimately, you're going to run into those people. And I firsthand have experienced it in one of my more recent jobs where I've had these ideas and it was almost like, I was a woman living in a man's world. It was almost like, okay, Jenna, thanks so much for the idea. Now go somewhere else. And that really that hurt. It cut me to my core. I was like, are we still doing this in today's day and age? But I guess my message to women who have been in that situation or that scenario is just remember that how am I putting it? You have to remember your own strength. You have to remember your own power, and you have to be confident in what you can bring to the table. And it, kind of bringing this full circle to what we were saying before. If you're getting in front of those people who are in a different mentality than you are, then those are not your people, right? So as what I want to say on women's empowerment is understand the force that you are, because if you don't, nobody else will. Right? Walk into those rooms being confident because you do know what you're talking about. And if you see somebody who is getting the shakedown from somebody else, like what is it? Like be the person that fixes the other person's crown, right? Support each other, because I've seen it happen too many times where these really fantastic women just are in the wrong crowds of people. And I want people to understand, like, don't keep spinning your wheels there. It's not going to get you anywhere, right? Find your group of people and go where you know you can make an impact. The other people will eventually come on board. They will see your greatness and they will come around. Or maybe they won't. Maybe I'm being idealistic, but ultimately my message to women is just know your strength, know your power, and surround yourself with like-minded individuals, because that's how we're going to change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jen, finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so you can always book time on my calendar, which is on the website, projectoutsource.co. And then all of my handles, whether on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, it's going to be Jenna M as in Marie, Jenna M Hatch. That's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, Jenna, I certainly am smarter for having this conversation. It's my first podcast conversation of the week, and what a kickoff, my friend. You brought your A game, so I want to appreciate your time and attention on my behalf, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation this morning. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. You are super wonderful. And again, I commend you. Keep it up because you are a fantastic host. And I'm sure everyone that comes on your podcast feels the same. So keep going.